has to mute, but she can share her screen. Yeah.
Good afternoon, lovely. Can you confirm if you can hear us? Can you hear us? Can you hear
Yes,
me?
I can. Yes, I can.
Start the session in 3 minutes.
What?
I said we'll start the session in 3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you.
Presenter view. Okay. So, I'm sorry. We're still trickling in. Okay, yeah, close the door, please. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I can start. So you make.
She's sharing by herself, okay, by herself. Yeah. We'll sort it out later. Okay.
Okay, everybody, thank you so much for the donations today. I'm excited to share this panel with my same projects. Things that three of us here. I think this is for our home in Shasta Delta.
Who's that? Did she present it? Check. Is that your link? Oh, so demote them. You demote them to no, not just no. One second. Change your change oh no, it's wrong. Wait.
My role as chair today is just facilitating questions, and it's just general grounds to let us have a very robust discussion. So first of all, there's a note about going around, which is your name and contact information. But there's a lot of notes about today, but we might not have time to cover everything. So our goal is to be able to check back in with you about the different events today. And there's also, I asked some people that are some NSA, some NSA being here. And so we have different, disciplines in the room. So I asked that to our patients and ask questions that you come up with this curiosity. And this is a distinction defense. So we're not going to interrogate each other, we're here to actually be in the spirit of, conversation. So I really want to keep that in mind when we're asking questions of curiosity. Please make sure your questions are concise and related to your questions. My goal is to reach out to you with your email address and your questions for the panel. So I will be going first. He's going alphabetical order. I'll be going first.
Presenter?
Yes.
So I need to. Yeah, because they joined using your own authority.
Right.
Let me see. I'll try to promote and see which one is left. You check on the screen, you will get a notification.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so I am ready to share my screen.
Are you able to share?
Okay.
Are you able to share? Yes, you can share. She was sharing before. Yeah, good, good. No.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Thanks for being in community meeting today. My name is Deborah with Dowda. I'm the principal investigator of the Background Subject Study. And I'm joined today in the audience and virtually by my co-researchers, Mr. Disparity of Dr. Gambo, Rebecca Boy, Vivian Magaki, Amos Mato, and Simon Alexander. Today, I will share my research on value women and my experience conducting food work with my family in South Northern Nigeria. Also, I'm still learning the Jew because language of the value, so some words you're going to hear me say today is pronounced quite differently from by the speaker. Here's our agenda for today. The Bantu are descendants. The Bantu are descendants of Barashman. They are patrilineal and patrilocal. Currently, the land of the Bantu is located in South Kaduna, the red section that you see on the map, in 4 primary local government areas: Jama'a, Zambi, Kata, Ahura, and Chia. Hunting and agriculture are the traditional livelihood practices of the Bantu, and Jew is the indigenous language of the Bantu. However, it's a tone practice morally beyond the. Furthermore, an ongoing doctoral research project on the archaeology of Kaju by Amos Mato, the research assistant on this study, indicates that the Badu were in the present territory before the 17th century. The Badu were under the hegemony of the Hausa Fulani and governed via indirect rule by the British through taxation and importation of Islamic institutions during the 19th century. However, they gained their independence from the Hausa Fulani Empire in 1995. And the independence was marked by the
Acronyms of what?
But against Christians, they adopted Christianity as a form of resistance to their subjugated status under the House of Fulani Empire. According to the late Farouk Makili, missionary and linguistic anthropologist, the complete operation of the Bible happened within 85 years, between 1929 and 1984. Although the conversion to Christianity did provide some gains in education and social standing for women, it came at a cost. The cost associated with the Bible spreading the adoption of Christianity still fails today, particularly on the cultural memory of the Bible. Christianity eroded the Bible's rich cultural traditions, rituals, and practices. People to the Jew language and marginalized their indigenous ways of feeling and philosophies of care. Despite this complex history and erosion of traditions, there's an ongoing cultural renaissance in country to recover the cultural memory and reclaim their ancestral practices. And this renaissance is also part of this global consciousness on Afrocentricity and decolonization, which the scholar Professor Mtsigwe Sensati describes as the need to, quote, regain and restore not only the physical, but also the cultural freedom of people of African descent on their own terms. This research contributes to the Renaissance by uncovering and reclaiming forgotten ancestral knowledge and practices that were sidelined by the colonial and missionary projects through the process of remembering as an act of decolonization that supports the individual and collective building of Black women. Although Christianity provides some freedom to Black women, Black women claim that Christianity liberated them from harmful cultural practices. Their relative socio-economic mobility gained through their conversion to Christianity is still tied to their domesticity and usefulness as women. Christianity is also weaponized by Black women who wield it as a lot of power over women, meaning that Black women are respected and highly valued based on specific moral codes and social contracts that are designed to elevate and sustain the lineages of their husband, even as they deal with the concern of violence in their home and in the community. Research shows that repeated exposure to violence and associated stressors, if left untreated, can result in unfavorable intergenerational and transgenerational epigenetic conditions, including depression, anxiety, and personality disorders. Given this context and the reality of the unmet need for mental health care in Nigeria, which has fewer than 300 psychiatrists and psychologists for a population of more than 200 people, it is important that Black women have creative ways to care for and heal themselves individually and collectively. This study is the qualitative transdisciplinary Africana feminist research design. I engage disciplines in health sciences, social sciences, humanities, to understand, analyze, and co-create a culturally responsive framework that addresses the psychosocial impacts of stress emanating from the afterlife of slavery and colonialism, such as the gender impacts of violence on Black women's bodies. But women have rich intellectual traditions. They are creative, industrial, and strategic. However, they are treated as subordinate to Baju men in all areas of life. The work of Rebecca Luka Aboy, a Baju woman educator and author, who is also part of the research team, illustrates that, and I quote, the woman is always an housewife in the household. The land of the children and the fruit of her labor is owned by the husband. She is considered property of her husband. This story is not unique to Baju. This is the reality of women in Nigeria and globally under patriarchy. However, the implications may are different cross-cultural. My field work took place in Zango, Qatar, and the local government areas of Ghana State from September 2022 to 2023. I used focus life stories, talking circles, key informant interviews, and archival research strategies. I also consider my participants as co-researchers. Co-researchers 18 and over, from these two regions were recruited and interviewed primarily in the Hausa and June language by two elder grandmothers who originally participated in the study through the focus life stories interviews for this project, and currently serve as teacher's assistant and community liaison for the study. Today, we're going to highlight some key conversations from this study and from topic circles. However, before I dive into that, I want to talk briefly about the challenges and opportunities of conducting research in porous security environments like in Southern Canada, to give us more context of the psychosocial stress of experienced by the Baju. So Nigeria's experiencing one of the worst economic crisis in a generation. Northern Nigeria has been experiencing a napkin of security challenges for quite some time. Leaving local communities vulnerable to violent attacks that has now shifted from the battlefield to the doorstep of their homes and villages. This includes what I hope you are all following, the recent massacre that happened in Benue State and countless others that we'll never hear about. So me and my family, my husband and two children who were ages 2 and 10 at the time, started Canada for field work for 2022. And within a month of our arrival, after completing a few interviews, we had an emergency evacuation order from the US Embassy due to rapidly evolving threats such as ransom abductions. So our host family was also worried about my safety and their safety, hosting American families as the level of distress of increased. As a result, my family moved to Ogun State in southwest Nigeria, and I taught research activities for 3 months while researching chain and data collection plans and outreach plans. I participated in interviews remotely while the team facilitated in-person interviews in several locations, and sometimes with securing personal presence for their own safety. So now let's cover the process of conducting the talking circles, the narrative shared by Baju. The talking circles were facilitated using sacred cultural objects that are meaningful to the co-researchers. In these pictures, we'll see a headboard outline resting on bluestone. The headboard is an important cultural artifact that serves many purposes for the Baju, including its use for the support of women during labor. The leaf on the right of the screen is for Ditum Vitamin and is used to treat stomach aches, and the one on the right is called Tabataqua and is used in healing ulcer. The stories shared by Baju women in these talking circles were self-similar in totality. This experience is a testament to what the feminist Bell gives us in our book, Sister Sophia, on how healing, and I quote, how healing comes through testimony and gathering together everything available to us and reconciling. So now let's look at the stressors shared by Baju women, how they respond to these stresses. So Baju women, like their counterparts in other African countries and the African diaspora, experience intersecting factors of domination and violence that shape their lives. However, unlike the diaspora sisters in high-income countries, they are experiencing insistent community violence due to abductions, natural activities, and other conflicts. This is not an attempt to minimize social, political, environmental, and economic insecurity affecting the overall quality of life of other Black women and communities globally. I make this decision, however, to delineate the situational and geopolitical conditions of Baju women in Southern Kaduna, the region the U.S. Department of State listed as do not travel. In our study so far, we identified the level of complexities in which Baju women describe and experience the stressors from the screen that you see, and how these stressors shape their lives. These stressors affect and inflict on the consumer violence, marginalization, and social exclusion that they're experiencing, irrespective of their class, their age, and educational level. So now let's talk about two of these stressors, violence and widowhood. Infertility creates tensions within families. In patriarchal African societies, women's fecundity and fertility have bearing on their social status and legal protection. Children provide women with a sense of security and stability. Therefore, we often find that women are ostracized and blamed for this issue, causing significant cancer and social stress. In fact, in Bible culture, a mother female child and children's rights passing pass. And in the case of a mother becoming a widow, she can be inherited by the eldest male child from the other co-wife to increase the husband's gene pool. So a barren woman may seek help through a diviner or a little doctor perform certain rituals. Often to spirits such as Stockman is also performed. Research also shared that they have that herbalist and prepared medicine that is infused with benefits, locust means unprepared and salt for women to use. Some people need their male child, changing the sex of the fetus from female to male requires a whole different intervention. And this is done using Hakon Abakwa, which is shown on the screen. So the oppression mentioned subjugation that black women experience is also generally compounded and they become widow. During the mourning period, which lasts up to a month, the late husband family are busy conniving on who would inherit the widow. After the mourning period, the widow participates in the planting ceremony, which includes the drinking of wine and bed and the rolling of corn to like beat the deceased goodbye. And the widow also have two options: be inherited by their dead husband family or the marriage. If she decides to leave the marriage, she must leave her children behind. And in some cases, if the widow has grown children, particularly grown male children, they can fight on her behalf to keep extended family away from her place husband's property. So how do white women show up for each other during this time of crisis and stresses? Yes. The body culture is limited. Fridays from our internet illustrated that widows may receive material and non-material support in the form of advice, land and materials to build a house, and financial support to pay for their children's school fees or to start a business. I also witnessed this type of collective practice when I lived in my host family. On every given day, widows would wait in her living room to have meetings with her. She listens to them, provides advice, and gives them whatever material goods that the widows need from the little that she has. She would often remind me that unlike the widows that are putting in her, she is relatively privileged, meaning that she is highly educated, she has a house, car, children, and grandchildren. So this is my presentation. I want to take the time to thank my research team that are in the audience, and also some also virtual, and particularly my co-researcher at the Zambia Patap and Jemaha, the Human Rights Center, BBRI, Government Secondary School, Dr. Machan, my roots for the maps, and the late Pastor Ekena for his work, and his Asabi Festus for catering. And particularly funding for this project with Fulbright, the NIH, the American Historical Society, and the Foreign Language and Research and Studies Fellowship. And my searching committee, Dr. Neda Alice and Diso, Professor Latu Monte, Dr. Daftari, and Professor Jim Kantiok, and my mentors, Dr. Christy Denkler and Dr. Haruna Kari. Thank you so much, everyone, for this call. Now we will, yes, the next person.
There was a request from one of the online examiners to go out there.
Use my husband. Yeah. That's the object, right? Yeah, that's the option. I think you are what I mean. So now we have with my colleague, lovely Adele from University of Miami. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me share my screen. Thank you. I don't know if everyone can see it. Okay, thank you everyone. Good morning. I'm a first year PhD student at the University of Miami, and this is more like a quantitative research, and I'm still like I just started doing it, and I'm not done yet. So the topic that I have already in the outlet that everybody is with, I have to like tweak it a little, like make changes because of the malaria data available in Nigeria. So I'll just go ahead to start. So sorry, I'm coming. So most people, I understood that most people don't really, understand how in a large scale that malaria is affecting everybody and how much people are dying in day-to-day basis, and as well as in relation to children in Nigeria. From from the outlet, I wrote Lagos, but I decided to look at, the larger scale, which is Nigeria. Before then, I'm going to look at specific states. So, in the introduction, malaria is a global infectious disease that affects individual health and has a worldwide distribution affecting people of all ages. And we could see that the amount of burden is 300 to 500 million clinical cases per year. Um, we have the symptoms like fever, chills, abdominal pain, and all that. Then countries globally have suffered the rampage of malaria episodes, including but not limited to Russia, Pakistan, Asia, and African countries, which bear the heaviest burden of malaria. In addition, the World Malaria Report, because I'm just showing you like from 2017, we have 219 million malaria cases and 435,000 confirmed deaths were reported in 2017 in Africa. Then we have in 2022, 252 million cases. Then in 2023, 263 million. Then the number of deaths remain, relatively stable at 597,000 in 2003. So malaria in Africa cannot be neglected, especially in its ability to constantly claim human lives and leave people bereaved and bankrupt annually. Also, scholar Ariboro, emphasized this finding that over 90% of malaria deaths, killing over 1 million children under 5 years, occurred in Africa. Then we could see that malaria remains a significant public health challenge, particularly in Nigeria, where the public continues to grapple with the devastating impact of this endemic disease. Nigeria bears the burden of the highest number of cases and deaths than any other country in the world, and it accounts for 30% of under 5 years old under 5 years mortality and 25% of infant mortality. Nigeria alone accounts for 30.9% of global malaria deaths in 2023. So what am I looking at? I'm looking at, for this study, I'm just looking at the relationship between these demographic factors like age and place of residence, and then their knowledge and attitude towards malaria prevention. Then I have my variables. I'm looking at children under 5 that slept under a mosquito bed net last night. Like I said, this is a quantitative research, and it's so there is no direct question for knowledge and attitude for the for let me say women, the reproductive age women that this data was collected from. There is no direct question for do your children know about this or that. It's more like I use like a proxy to measure this, like looking at children under 5 that slept under a mosquito net last night. Then the independent variable, I'm just looking at two, the age and the place of residence, which is urban versus rural. And then I have my hypothesis question. Women in urban areas are more likely than those in rural areas to report that their children slept under a mosquito net, controlling for the effect of age. Then the second one, young women. This is a categorical variable. It's not continuous. So I have to like dichotomize it to have like younger age and older age. So that's that agree that their children slept under a mosquito net, controlling for the effect of place of residence. Then the study analyzed data from the Demographic and Health Survey, DHS, a nationally representative cross-sectional survey whose data were collected in 2021 among women of reproductive age 15 to 49 years living in Nigeria. The data are analyzed and the hypotheses are tested using the Pearson's chi-square test of independence. So these are my findings. First of all, like I said earlier, the data was dichotomized, like I just made it like two. Then I have like older age to be from 35 to 49. And children slept under a mosquito net last night. I recorded it as 0 for people that don't have net at all, and children that didn't sleep under the net, while 1 is recorded for all children and some children that slept under net. So basically, if the mother or anyone looking after them has a net, then there is every tendency that they will do what they will sleep under the net. So, like the first hypothesis said, women in urban areas are more likely than those in rural areas for their children to sleep under the mosquito net. When I control for, what I mean by controlling for the effect of age, it's more like when you control for the effect of age, you are removing the influence of age so that you can see the true relationship between place of residence and whose children slept under mosquito nets. Then in age 1, that's the younger age, we have 83.0 reported, like from the urban area, we have 83.0 reported for children slept under a net, then in rural, 86.0. Then for age group 2, which are older people, we have 80.0 reported their children slept under a net, and rural 84.3. Then we have the total, urban being 82.1 and rural 85.6. So the chi-square is 11.62. So we could already see that the hypothesis women in urban areas are more likely than those in rural areas for their children under 5 to have slept under a mosquito net last night, controlling for the effect of age, that the hypothesis is not supported because the rural women consistently report more net use by their children under 5 across both ages, both people that are older and younger. So even though the results are statistically significant, the direction of the relationship contradicts the hypothesis. The relationship between place of residence and reported mosquito net use was found to be statistically significant across all ages. However, the direction of the association contradicted the original hypothesis. So we could see that this study aligns with Ladi Akinyemi because with other scholars that stated that the utilization of long-lasting insecticide net was 50.2% in the urban area versus 52% in the rural household, showing that rural households use nets more than the urban households. Then we could see when you look at these charts, you could see that here in the rural area, we could see here, and then even in respondents' age of older people, we could actually also see this. So next, sorry, I'm coming. So for the hypothesis 2, younger women are more likely than older women to agree that their children slept under a mosquito net, controlling for the effect of place of residence, and the hypothesis is not supported as well, because here we could see that 83.0% said that their children, like in younger women, that their children slept under a net for urban areas, and 80.0 said that their children slept under a net. Then when you go to rural areas, 86.0 said that their children slept under a net, and older women in the rural area said 84.3. So younger women 85.2 for the total, and older women 82.8. Then the first the first one, which is in urban area, is statistically significant, but the second one is not statistical. So the hypothesis is not supported because in across the place of residence, we only have for urban area being statistically significant. So we could see the discussion shows that the result shows a statistically significant association between age and child mosquito net use in the urban area alone. However, this association is not statistically significant in the rural area. This finding suggests that younger women are more likely than older women to report that their children slept under a mosquito net. This also aligns to an extent with the finding of these scholars that younger individuals, particularly those aged 15 to 19, tend to have higher ITN utilization rates than older individuals. This is because why we could not actually, see from my analysis, like, because I have age range 15 to 34, because I actually dichotomized it to be just in two. So it's not really to a greater extent, or else, maybe when I actually make the age range to be so we could see from the charts here, age 1 and age 2. So conclusion is that this study has its limitation. One limitation is that the variables are dichotomized, like it's not as it is, which reduces variability in the data and limits the ability to detect more effects of the independent variable. The study employs a simple chi-square test to examine the relationship between selected variables. In continuation of this research, it will also explore additional independent variables like cultural backgrounds and religious affiliations without dichotomizing them to better detect their effect on the dependent variable. This study could utilize more advanced statistical techniques such as logistic regression, which could provide a deeper understanding of the strength and direction of the relationship between the independent and dependent variable. Thank you.
Thank you so much for loving us. Session of this another touch on the difference in the world. Presentation. So next we will go to process.
Good day, everyone. I am Father Director, partner of the Minister of Talent. The topic of my second presentation is special epidemiology of substance abuse among young adults in Lagos State, Nigeria. This is actually an ongoing research, and as the topic stands, it's a relatable topic and a trendy topic that we can all relate to. The continuous engagement in sexual abuse among young adults in the world today is worrisome. It is not an occurrence that is limited to one country or a particular part of the world. It is ubiquitous and has assumed a global dimension and trend. United Nations Office of Drug and Crime confirms that the prevalence of substance abuse is very high in the world today, and people are looking at the urban areas as being the areas with most prevalent substance abuse, especially among young adults, because everything that human activities exist in space. This is why spatial epidemiology examines the geographic distribution of health outcomes and their relationship with environmental factors, like according to Eliot Schwarzenberg, 2004. But in the case of spatial epidemiology, we need to look at the problem of substance abuse holistically. As we look at individuals, we need to look at the role of the families, social organizations, and the government as well. This is the area where most research is actually happening. Most research don't talk about, doesn't talk about the area of government policy, the environment that we live in, the big individuals, and they talk about individuals. Substance abuse itself is the misuse of psychoactive substances to the detriment of individuals' health and daily functionality. And around us, we can see that substance abuse is a catalyst to crime and early deaths. It encourages criminal behaviors and facilitates illicit activities. Substance abuse can lead to physical, psychological, and social disorders. The impact can be felt as brain damage, schizophrenia, and untimely death. Substance abuse is a lifestyle, a culture among people. That is why the American broadcaster Larry King said, crime is a major tourist attraction. You have crimes in your community, they flock to your city. That is urban, he's still talking about urban environments. Second of the problem, the annual prevalence of substance use for people aged 50 to 64 was estimated to be 296 million in 2021. That's 23% increase from 2011, according to United Nations Office on Drug and Crime. Then you look at it, the population of Nigeria is dominated by 70% young adults, according to National Bureau of Statistics in 2020. And United Nations Habitat in 2022 says that 50% of urban dwellers reside in slums. We have to take note of that. They reside in slums. And urban areas have affinity with substance abuse among its young population, according to Oxford in 2013 as well. So 14.3 million Nigerians, which represents about 14.4% of the population aged 15 to 64, had used drugs at least once in the past 1 year. That's according to National Survey on Drug Use by United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime in 2018. This survey is the survey that covers the whole country to date. And the survey further reveals that cannabis is the most widely used, the most prevalent substance that people abuse, especially among young adults. The thing is this: when we look at substance abuse, we have to look at it in terms of urbanization, population, socioeconomic factors, and political neglect. Now, according to Guardian newspaper, it says that locations where substances are abused are accessible and the prices are affordable. The further says that the price of a substance, especially the one that are available in slums and the likes of cannabis and the like, the prices are less than the price of a soft drink. A soft drink in Nigeria costs 500 naira at the most. So that means it is affordable for common people to use. So studies also show that mental disorder has increased significantly among Nigerian boys. That's according to this 2025, I think last month report in Guardian newspaper. So according to NDLA, this is so enormous that NDLA has to suggest that mandatory drug tests should be a part of tertiary institutional admission process. It said that last year. And the same NDLA also suggested recently, just last month, that all intending National Youth Service Corps members should undergo drug tests as well. NDLA, the chairman of NDLA, Major General Guamara Charge, had to urge the president of this country last year in November to declare a state of emergency on substance abuse because of the enormity in Nigeria's case. The most painful thing is that there are no barriers. I'm sorry, there are barriers to treating substance abusers due to access, care, and availability of and non-availability of rehabilitation centers. The rehabilitation centers in Nigeria are not enough. I've researched on that, and I found out that even Lagos State that it's really up and coming with that. With the population of Lagos, which is by now over 20 million by estimate, and the population of Lagos is even said to be by 2030 to be around 28 million people. Lagos State still doesn't have enough rehabilitation centers to cope with the rate of substance abuse. The aim of this research is to examine the special epidemiology of substance abuse among young adults in Lagos State. And the objectives are, maybe I should skip that because of our time, and I'll move to the research gap. So one of the major reasons this research is being carried out is that there are no compelling works done to examine the empiric impact of human-environment interactions study of substance abuse in Nigeria, and even the world over. Most of the literature that have reviewed, most of them don't talk about human-environment interaction, which is very, very important to our world, because human and environment has a reciprocity reciprocal relationship, a kind of circular causal relationship, because the environment impacts and affects humans, so also humans affect the environment in return. Then most research does not emphasize the role of and the functionality of urban areas to cities in substance abuse. Here, the question is, most of our cities, Lagos in particular, what is the functionality of Lagos itself? There is spatial disparity in Lagos. There are areas which are upscale areas where wealthy people live. Then there are areas which are like slums, like the UN habitat that I quoted earlier on, that 50% of people who live in urban areas reside in slums. So what is the lifestyle of people in slums? Why do people live in slums? Areas like Ajebule, Makoko, and the likes, Mushin. What is the lifestyle there? Why do they live there? If not because of inequality in socio-economic condition, urban poverty, and when people cannot afford to live in upscale areas, they move to the slum, and then political how do I put it now? Yeah, political neglect, political policies of our leaders too. When an environment is demolished, when they resettle them, then how do they take care of the resettled people? Then there is limited research that views substance abuse from the lens of political economic affairs, and then social disorganization, relative deprivation or inequality, and structural roots of substance abuse. Then the conceptual and the theoretical frameworks for this research are, first, from the conceptual framework, the social epidemiology of substance abuse is anchored on the concept of human-environment interaction. The human-environment interaction concept is in three forms: environmental determinism, environmental possibilism, and cultural ecology. Environmental determinism is a concept that was developed in the late 19th and early 20th century by the likes of Ellsworth and Pope. So it simply says that environment determines the activities of humans and even places limitation on them. Then a school of thought later countered this. That's the environmental possibilism school of thought. That no, human beings too can also influence the environment with their wherewithal, maybe technology nowadays, technology and every other thing. Then there's a nexus between the two schools of thought. That's cultural ecology. Then the theoretical framework. Now here, there are 5 theories that support. There are many theories anyway, but then there are 5 theories that most that people, like I said earlier on, that people don't actually look at while researching substance abuse. The first one is the political economy theory. The political economy theory simply posits that health outcomes are largely determined by the broader socioeconomic and political context in which individuals live, the environment in which individuals live. So the focus of the theory is not solely on biological or behavioral determinants. The perspective examines how social structures, class relations, state policies, and economic systems shape health inequalities. Central to the study is the capitalist systems, according to the likes of scholars like Navarro in 2004. He argued that capitalist policies often prioritize profit over public health, leading to disparities in healthcare access. Then the other one is social disorganization theory. Social disorganization theory, which was proposed by Henry Mackay and Clifford Shaw. And Clifford Shaw, in 2010, it says that it talks about the delinquency in environment as a result of transitional neighborhood. And the transitional neighborhood is that neighborhood that has deteriorated from a wealthy area to an upscale, to a decayed area. Then the other one is the broken windows theory. The broken windows theory, that one says that it suggests that visible signs of disorder and neglect in a community, such as broken windows, rubbish and lights, foster an environment that encourages more serious crimes. Then the disease triangle. The disease triangle strictly says that it's called epidemiological triad 2. It's a theory that explains 3 key elements. Number 1, susceptible host, that is substance abuser. A pathogen, that's the causative agent, that is the drug or substance, and then a favorable environment. Let's put Lagos in this now. Lagos favorable is Lagos a favorable environment for substance abuse. Go of time, and I will go to the methodology of research. The methodology for this research is an integration of 3 approach, comprising qualitative, quantitative, and the geospatial approach. And the data collection procedure is for qualitative approach. In-depth interview of young adults and the public to be used. Then key informant interview for quantitative approach of the self-administered questionnaires in a Likert format. Gather information, then medical and hospital records will be obtained from hospitals for GIS mapping and the geospatial analysis. So, in conclusion, apart from advocacy and prevention, this study intends to explore the role of environment and socio-economic factors on substance abuse and leverage on the introduction of GIS to open a new vista into the knowledge of substance abuse in Lagos State. Then the study will analyze the spatial distribution of substance abuse and identify the areas that are in urgent need of rehabilitation or healthcare services. Then lastly, the findings from this research will contribute to the body of knowledge in the field of spatial epidemiology, health, and health policy, and it will help policymakers in making workable policies that may enable them to tackle the menace of substance abuse in Lagos State. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. So now we have a last presenter, right? For today, probably to another side.
Good afternoon, everyone. As she said, I'm Senior Coach Naomi. I teach at the University of the same department as Personal Education. All right, so I will be sharing with you preliminary findings of an ongoing study in the area of medical humanities. But I just want to say this about my background. I'm a medical geographer. So looking at health issues, disease health and healthcare resources from geographic perspective. So as soon as the slides are open, I'll start my presentation. So, but the question, I start my presentation by asking the question, what is it possible to tell the story of public health through the lens of posters, health posters and stamps? So because these visual artifacts and some scholars have alluded have some productive ambiguity. Yeah, and I made an attempt to give a visual account of public health from post-independence to contemporary times. Please forgive me if you feel like we do justice to this presentation. I really welcome your comments and suggestions at the end of this presentation. Well, next slide. All right, so the central question, key question is, how can visual culture complement history to document the memories and experiences of public health of Nigeria? So to address this key question, there are some specific sub-questions. Number one is, what were the dominant themes that these artifacts were, and how do they reflect the cultural and geographic context of the times? Then also, did they retain the residue of British colonialism in their message framing? And then also, what were the people's beliefs and experiences of disease and also its symptoms? And then also, how were geographical regions often represented? That's also looking at it from geographical standpoints. And then also, the study also adopted a variety of heretical perspectives, such as the post-colonial theory, visual culture, and I can't remember, I don't know why this is all this. So, but then also the methodological approach is the content analysis. So, this is better. Thank you very much. So can we continue? Next slide. Next. So it's also adopted a mixed methods approach and the comprising and gather research. I mean, it's really, I was really surprised that we don't really have this course, we don't really have an archive of health posters. Most of what I found were welcome collections when I had the opportunity to be asking. And they have very, very impressive collection of many of these things. And then also NIPOS. I was very impressed to see that NIPOS also has a very large collection of stuff, very bad times and a lot actually speaking to public health issues. Then also oral histories and expert interviews and scientists on this. Lessons. So here we have a mosaic of health posters which speak to the issue of smallpox. As you all know that, as we all we are aware, smallpox has been eradicated as far back as the 70s. And you can see messages. There are some that have sort of appeals to the public to make vaccination a new year resolution. Yeah. And then you see that some of these messages are very brief, straight to the point. The one that interests me the most of this three is the one that the extreme right says avoid smallpox. So I don't know if he's telling the patients to avoid or talking to someone else there. So and then also you can now see that Nigerians are now taking responsibility for their healthcare in the last image as well. Right, so the very first one, see that there's a public health perspective here, and you can see the relic it has, which is a relic of the colonial transitional time. Next, please. All right, then we now move to, sorry, the earlier slide is just before, the it puts together not just post-independence, but also contemporary. Yeah, then again, I'm sure many people remember family planning was a big issue in the 90s, right? And you see how, having too many children, how these posters, having too many children would be a problem. All right, and that was how these Grammy nominees, American women at the Kingston and the Hospital, put up a track. And they're just trying to, discourage or encourage really family plan, yeah, which for me, spacing, child spacing, and some business. And then also breastfeeding. These again are some images from 80s and 90s, all right? Encouraging mothers to breastfeed their children. And the one I like the most is the one in the middle, where the woman is receiving spousal support, for breastfeeding. So again, that also speaks to gender relations and gender dynamics. But I think that could also, gender relations could also be counterproductive to isolation. Yeah. Again, we are still in the 90s. Then there was a big issue about substance abuse, drug trafficking, especially during the military era, where if you were found to be trafficking cocaine, execution. There was a decree, I can't remember the decree of the time, but if you were found, drugs on you, or you were found trafficking drugs, you were arrested and also faced firing squad as it was there in the 90s. So these were images, and there was a lot of, heavy funding towards the publicization, so the sensitization of these drug abuse. Next. Yes, so I'm sure you all remember the Afrobeat legend, Fela Kuti, right? He died in 1997, and of course his elder brother, who was a very renowned professor of medicine, publicly announced to the world that his younger brother, died of HIV. All right, and of course, I think it was at that point when people there realized that AIDS was real. All right, and then look at again his son, Femi Kuti, trying to be an ambassador here and said that okay, it's not the show of office, and that is in pidgin English. All right, and of course, Nigeria also took advantage of the World Cup, New York World Cup 1999. She also had its voice to the advocacy of HIV/AIDS. And again, look at that stamp too. Now, the stamp really looks closely. You see that there's a gathering of people there, and these are people from all different walks of life, and of course across the country. You see there are some Yorubas, there are some. So just to let you know, it's just to point to the fact that inclusion, yeah, was also a key message there. Next, please. And also Lassa fever. Lassa fever has been with us for quite a while now. But these are also images from the Nigerian Center for Disease Control. You would see that it's now looking more clumsy. I mean, from the earlier images we saw that the messages were very short, direct, and brief. But now we see there's a lot of information being into all of these posters and images that we see these days. So there's a lot to actually consume on these images. Next, please. And then, of course, polio. Right. When the child is affected now with polio, it's usually the lifelong experience, which is very, very unpleasant. Sometimes we feel that these people are sick with us. We later hear that, oh, actually, my parents didn't take me for vaccination, and sometimes very sad to get this. So this is a very big image of a young girl who is a polio victim. And then also EPI, which is the expanded program for immunization from the 70s too. Right? And then of course, Nigeria has, all through the 90s, polio, but there was an episode, someone found tried to buy boycotts during 2006 because of the previous experience of the Truman doctrine in 96. And that also had adverse effects. So people weren't really, there was this hesitancy about this vaccine, so they decided to stay. So it took the likes of Bill Gates and Sultan of Shopping to actually convince people to take, and that explains Keep Polio House to Nigeria campaign. Next question. Because more recently, Ebola, we had the Ebola, that's the banner somewhere outside hospital, I guess. Then also you have the Mpox epidemic last year, and also showing. So there's more infographics here, more images and so on. They are very light on the message. And of course, the one that is very, very fresh, still very fresh, is COVID. All right, so images again, and that is the governor of Lagos State. Has shown leadership, for example. Next. Then also cholera. You can see again, there's a lot that has gone into all of this. There's a lot of health advisory there, what to do, how to stop it. And this, of course, were images from last year when there was an outbreak here in this state. So, for all of this, preliminary insights, you will see that there's been a transition from established infectious diseases to reimagine or imagine infectious diseases. And again, you see that many of these posters and stuff mirror the local realities and also the social context in which these health events occur. And you could also tell from most of the stuff that were shared that Nigeria conforms to global practices. Okay. And then also gender dynamics. All right. The agency of nature. In one image, we saw spousal support for breastfeeding. But when it came to family planning, you see that the woman held on to her husband's shirts. Right? So they see that there wasn't a consensus at that point. Correct. And then looking at health messaging from the colonial or post-independence times, you see that the health warnings were a bit stern, short and direct, and then the images were black and white, and of course, more recently became more. But not in recent times, we now have they are now colorful, they are more detailed, and they seem to have a lot of information on precautions. And now, of course, again, the last thing to mention is inclusion. All right, it's a method for every Nigerian, all right, regardless of where you are, your sex, and ethnic background. But what I have not yet seen is seems to me, up to now, I would say, maybe I haven't been able to spot artifacts that can point in that direction in the lack of geographical context. And we still don't know where these messages are being directed to, or even within these posters, and we have some more information about geographical context of these incidents or these public health messages. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much for your presentation. I'm very excited. So the geography, public health intersections, and the some geography as well. So I want to open up to our audience, both virtually and personally. I'm not sure if our colleague Edwin is still here. I don't see that in the. We have a connection. Okay, so I didn't hear. I didn't see you. But we'll start with 3 questions. I appreciate you coming. Yes, thanks.
I have 2 questions. The first is for you, Deborah. Call your collaborators in this project co-researchers. And I can imagine what that means to you as someone looking to have a co-equal relationship with them. And also by the participants are seeking their own knowledge in the ways that they were participating in your project. So I'd be curious to hear more about their motivations, especially as researchers themselves in this. My second question is for the final presenter, and I was wondering if you could speak a bit more to the methodological uniqueness of these posters, like some of your observations I can imagine making through other kinds of archives. Like there are debates in public health, family planning, like should we be targeting the bench? Should we be talking about marital relationships? And that shows up in different ways through meeting records and program planning, all these other things. So what is it specifically about posters that might be revealed in the artistry, in the voice of the state, in the audience? Like, what is missing in the other kinds of archives? Like, what kinds of information or tone or something that we don't get unless we include these posters? And that's really asking you to kind of generalize this in a big picture way. And I understand you're midway, but there's certainly, like, the images themselves just bring a lot to me that written text doesn't and meetings notes don't. And so I'm just wondering if you can elaborate on that kind of form of archive.
Thanks. So thanks. Well, I haven't really given much thought, but I think your question is more, I'll say that once before thoughts. So I'll just reflect on that. I'll make it better. Thanks.
Your question, Steve. So the choice to with the citation project, and there's other factors, the use of tools such as participants, sources of knowledge. So when I try to use tools such as, I do see them as like research community. And by the way, my team is here, so they can also answer the question, they contribute. We have Vivian, we have Amos Matos to be able to Amos Matos, and we have a Victoria Campbell, and we have one of our that's not here, since our going there. So choosing for research as is an intentional way of recognizing that our research community are the experts, right? However, it's a new concept in terms of, or a new way of, again, that is also very intentional. So I'm also learning about it, or learning and relearning, indigenous way of doing things, learning from different Aboriginal, scholars and researchers who hoping to be able to have a different relationship with our community. So even during some of our conversation, there's this feeling of like, you want to talk to me, and what I have to say is really important. It's like, yeah, like you give us life, right? And so it's a way to actually connect ourselves, but it's not really nothing. Because, there's always constant interrogation of my own functionality, right? As a Black diaspora woman of Yoruba and graduate descent, so I have all of those, and I have all my Black feminist woman ideas that African women have been carrying for decades before it became named. So it's a process of learning for both people, and we are both co-producing knowledge. But I'm just using to use for co-researchers who are negotiating with my advisors and how to articulate what they're doing. But I know what my intentions are. That helps for that.
So it says, what an excellent presentation. Thanks for sharing. Can you share any insights on how impactful these public health campaigns were? To what extent is the public reading into the message of the postal service versus radio, TV, or other platforms of public communications?
Thank you. Now, again, this is food for thought. So, but I'm taking it to.
All right. To what extent?
Yes, that's why at some point I have to do some interviews, expert interviews, and also to do some other issues too. So that would, I think that in many ways actually answer the question on how we to what extent did the public really into this message? Right. So, but it's not something I think I can answer adequately at this point. But I think if by the time I continue, again, this is ongoing, but so if by the time I start with the field work components, yes, I'm sure I will get that sense. Thanks.
Anyone else has any questions?
Yes. But I don't know whether to call it a question or a comment.
Yeah, boys.
Okay, sorry, online. I don't really know whether to say it's a question or a comment. By the way, thank you, Mr. Jegede, for a good presentation. I am very happy that you the area of research is Lagos. Normally, we refer to Lagos as miniature Nigeria. Politicians will always say this: if Lagos sneezes, the whole of Nigeria will catch cold. So this means that whatever is happening in Lagos is very important to a wider. It has a wider implication for the whole country. Now, you've made mention of certain demographics that the government is probably proposing to have them tested for drugs and so on. But there are other demographics that are particularly been worried about. For example, our drivers. I watched a video recently on social media, and they said one of the most dangerous places to drive in the world. I don't know how true that is, but they said Nigeria. And if you look at it, most of our drivers are the ones we refer to as agricultors. These are people that drive most of the times under the influence of drugs. So, look at the consequences. Look at the fatalities, the types of accidents we have on our roads on a daily basis, and so on and so on. I don't know whether this is an area that your research is going to look at. And then even our celebrities, our musicians, a lot of them just camouflage as musicians. We see them, and they are role models for young people. A lot of young people look at these people as who want to copy their lifestyle. This is what, but underneath, this is what they are. And then another group which is very important, and maybe a lot of people argue, is politicians. I think it is high time that also try to look into politicians. We also have them, some of them tested for these things.
That's it's not sufficient, but perhaps you can answer the third the mentioned fact that the NDLA is prohibited policy, also the admission and housing for exactly advice to them, and I'm just thinking like this is a class question, right? There's something about like people don't have certain access to right resources and position of power, right? We talk about politicians, the artists, right? So if you're thinking about like, who are we to target, right? In terms of that's why this policy is working. Yes, that's downside.
Thanks so much. Yeah, if I may add to what I said, I noticed that I've noted that I skipped this because of time. So model parks are covered in my research. Actually, model parks. Then the issue of celebs, the celebrities. I once thought about that would be because that's a close culture. You might not have access to them directly. Although I have some friends who run nightclubs and the likes, and a couple of them, I have a couple of musicians as well, and those who can link to them. But when I discuss something that I will be embarking on this research, so some of them were like, they also suggested that why don't I treat that separately? So I now thought of, okay, perhaps if there will be a paper of that or research that will be dedicated to that, because it's not what you can just bust into and you start asking questions about that, and that will be the problem of cooperation. Then the issue of politicians. Last year, yes, there were two bills that were carried by the municipal last year. Remember, for example, within a space of 1 week, one reported that it was a front page news in most of the newspapers. One reported that one senator from, I think, Bauchi State or Ondo State, I can't remember consistency now. The man said that most of their colleagues at the National Assembly abuse substances, and the news carried it. He said most of their colleagues. That's one of the things I was thinking about. That even after this research and several other research, how will this research be implemented? And this will be implemented when the people who are supposed to form policy are even culpable, they are complicit of the issue. Then the other one, the following week, not long after that, a news reported that one senator, about this from Kwara State now, consistency, his office and home were bossed by DSS or something like this. So these are some of the issues we have. But then the issue of celebrities, I will look into that. It's not part of this. I don't like about that. It's not part of this set now. But the motor parks for drivers are no. On that interest. Most of them is us. Thank you so much.
Yes, thanks. I have a question for long-term research. Okay, I can do a function question. Tell me what let's accept you. So I just wanted to ask, like, what matter of data election intelligence? Because this is also something that you also need somebody and be willing to share that information. My sister will take it and more anonymous. So that's one of the strange.
Yeah, I've said it there. It's the mixed method qualitative, which will include interviews, key informal interviews, and interview. So either interview would be for perhaps people who are interested, perhaps licensed, hospital. When you get to hospital, it's like, for instance, I have a friend who works at the drug ward, directly at the drug ward, National Psychiatric Hospital. We have that. I've spoken with her and said that she has patients who manage in interview. Then the key, key point for the about economic hospitals, doctors, then NTLA, those who are always cooperating because they are working. So, then quantitative will be use of personnel like that.
Thank you so much. I'm actually trying to picture our folks. So I have Stacy, I have what's your name now? Is it okay? Tracy, so me, and you. Can you give me what's your name? Yes, I got my ladder. Thank you. Okay, Tracy.
Just quickly, I think one of the strengths of your approach is trying to have a holistic story to tell about drug abuse, substance abuse. But I think one of the limitations of that is lumping all substance abuse as if it's the same thing. And the examples that have just come up, drivers that are using this to work and to stay awake and to be alert in a certain way is extraordinarily different than anyone at a club, but especially for a boy or whatever. And what politicians are doing and cannabis use is very different. So what I would encourage you to be able to pursue your goal is to really focus on a particular cultural, economic, labor environment. And then from that, you can trace out the spatial implications. But lumping it all together, substance abuse as one thing, I think really prevents us from understanding the unique context for each of these practices.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for that information. Okay, kind of so I'm going to follow up what she just said. Because you mentioned specific fact that you have certain people who want to about and then who say they have access to literature. I want you to be very, very careful because you beyond the whole talk of ethical consideration, you have to be very, very careful. Beyond the identification of the violence and all that, you have to get proper recognition and you have to be humane through the process. If you think you've been humane for have an accountability and that possibility to make sure that you're checked because you do not want to compromise all of the other children. So it's important for you to do that. And beyond anything else, also consider your mental health as you do the work. So that you don't get lost situations.
Thank you.
Okay, so briefly, thank you for this amazing section. So I have two questions. And before I ask, I'd like to add. So, you are just like the state of the rest of the world. And my interest is centered around history, maternal health, government, and the like. So, and when you were talking about the case of posters and stamps, so relating it to public health, like no, the data you shared was really insightful because I also use the newspapers. So I looked at representation of motherhood in newspaper. So I looked at Daily Times, amongst other newspapers. So and the next thing I would like to say is directed to so we spoke about the battery women in northwestern Nigeria. So we spoke about the herbs, their healing practices. So can we say these battery women are they traditional healers? Like are they basically so we have traditional healers or vet attendants? Are they that or it's just because they are custom to have all the healing practices? That's one. Then secondly on vaccination. I think there was one post that spoke about the breastfeeding facts. So like there was a time I was looking at the data that has to be having fathers being present when doing childbearing and all those things. So that's something shared that the whole father assisting the mother to breastfeed the baby. You see that during that period where when fathers sensitized about the impact of or like when they posters, more posters of okay, fathers need to be more active, more present. Because I know for the newspaper it was cast like it was just they were little to no sensitization to how fathers should be involved in receiving vaccination and that. But for course, are there other materials or other information that's centered around that? So can be.
Mr. Campbell, you must about her. May I ask a question one more time? So I'd like them to also.
Okay. So for the budget women, I would like to understand, are they traditional medicine attendants, like because she was sharing slides on them having more information on herbs and some healing practices. Can they be classified as TBA, not just like traditional medicine for healers?
Yeah,
Well, I think,
so we are all on this thing, and I'm just saying, I'm also putting that this for you, I'm not just with you.
actually, what we've been trying to do is to look at how these women are able to help themselves first, whenever they are in stressful situations. So we are trying to look at indigenous methods. We have different women doing different things to try to help themselves. So some of them try to help women that have difficulties in giving birth, childcare, even the sex of the child, so on and so on. And then some of them are suffering as a result of domestic violence and so on. So we are looking at how do these women help themselves. I think there was a question on motivation for the research. When she came for the research, one of the things that motivated us was, look, our women have suffered. Now, this research offers an opportunity for some of these people, some of these women, and help so that we can find solutions to some of the problems for some of the challenges. And it will amaze you that this is really not normal, but when we approach women to share their views, their opinions, some of the causes of stress in their life, a lot of them were feeling, and it came out, we share their stories, we share stories of people that they know that live around them. So you have different women doing different things to help themselves. And to answer your question straight, we can say that yes, some of them are we should additional midwives.
They are different. So we have one of our demographics. We have, so I wouldn't call them or consider them TBAs, but that's not what they told us. So other also methodologies like how they name, but how they name what they do and how they name themselves, like self-name. So I have a situation where they call themselves church members, and because they, with different communities, right? And we don't do the same issue stuff. We have a woman that is presenting maybe one thing, but really there's like so many intersecting issues that is made them to understand what I'm saying. So but within the context of this work, like we haven't encountered where they're referring to the CDs, but we don't consider they all have and they deal with, where one person's power stops, another one begins, right? You understand what I'm saying? So but they have different inherited knowledge, and then there's a process of also trying to also remember something that is also lost. So we don't do that interaction, putting them in the same room. People were like literally like, oh, you do this, or you know what, we're here. So it was a lot of like remembering about what they don't know, how one person can use this particular verse to do something and somebody else is doing. So for now we haven't seen that in our narratives yet. Thanks. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Susan. I don't have sufficient materials to make it a very valid conclusion, but my suspicion is, I guess we're worried about the brains behind this health boosters. We're probably worried about the absence of the main agency. Right? I mean, from my suspicion is that something previous to the area was just beyond that chat. Right. So the woman also, for that time, so I called to life. So to the efforts of two people, man and woman. So the man also has a level to play on that. So it's just very similar to antenatal and postnatal service socialization. In the past, it was only women, but now it's mandatory that the husband, yes, shows up to accept throughout sessions.
I'm excited. So, doing geography, I just get excited about in the room with people who are managing my primary field, and I see the connection. My background is supposed to political science, so I'm very excited. But my question on slide 11, was like we're talking about like how we were so private, right? And a lot of the studies said like pre the slide 11, right? Things were much more simple. And the communication was very straightforward and fun. Then shifting after the other was like the 2000 or something, I don't know. Right? Then this is again very, very crowded. And we get so I'm trying to figure out like what happened in that change? Like what happened? Why? So that's one of the questions. Another one is like this is somebody else has something very similar about the slide where you see the gender differentiation, like the support of breastfeeding, right? And you see like it's not a good situation. And like kind of ground us in the reality, like watching, right? Like with family planning, right? We're not trying to increase the male gene in this sense, right? And we want more children, right? Like our, cultural and patriarchy actually want children, right? So my own thing is like, okay, well, it makes sense that with breastfeeding, we are promoting that module and yeah, we want to make sure that you sustain that gene, right? So we're there to support that. But with the other side of it, by family planning, it's not like it's a secret. So that's my observation. So yeah, so thank you. And I think we have actually we're at science. It's very okay. I guess
Okay, my question is it's very simple. Great work. I was just wondering, what's the end goal? Because I see that really gathered a lot of information for dating, and so on. Do you hope to build a constitute something like that? I don't think I have.
And I appreciate that. So this work is still ongoing. We have what about 8 demographics, right? Let's say workers. So the scenario we have today is like a very, very small subset of demographics, which is just focused on one of the primary goals of this work is to document this like as a to remember the one these things are because what we are learning is that we are forgetting our ways of knowing and being, right? And this is a way to kind of help to complement not just like clinical practices, so like when you don't have access to certain things, like what other options do you have? Well, we have this very effective. But I'm like, Chinese medicine, for example, we have more what's the word people documented, right? Exactly. So it's a little different, but we're not also connected on like what's this living control in ways whereby it continues to not just promote them, they see value, but
It's so much.
it's them that this community, yeah. And so that's why we work very strongly and yes, and this is yeah, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for coming. It's a pleasure to be here.
That was very